Okay, so last time I had made a video, I guess the last few minutes of that got cut off, and basically all I had wanted to say at that point was talk a little bit about the life paths. In Cyberpunk 2077, there's three life paths: Nomad, Street Kid, and Corpo. Though one of the large complaints about the life paths was that they don't make a huge impact on gameplay. The biggest difference between the three is the opening 10 to 20 minutes of the game, where you get like a special intro mission tailored to whatever life path you picked. Outside of that, once you start getting into the game as a whole, it seems like everybody's story basically defaults to Street Kid. So there's been a lot of disappointment with that, and I understand that. So the different life paths, basically what they do for you is they give you different dialogue options, and maybe they will change the outcome of certain missions. But overall, they don't impact the main storyline at all, from what I can see. That's what I've heard from the community as well. So yeah, I can see people being a little bit disappointed with that. But just to kind of explain what these different life paths are, in the tabletop game, these three choices have significant differences between them. The Nomads are, it's kind of like a tribal based society almost. They live on the outskirts of Night City, and they're, like it says in the name, they're nomadic people. They move from place to place. They rely heavily on vehicles, so they also have like heavily customized vehicles, up armored, off road suspension. Some of them even have gun turrets on them. And a lot of times, people in the Nomads will act as like smugglers, or sometimes like armed escorts for convoys, things like that. That's at least their function in the tabletop. And if you like dropping creds or euro dollars, eddies into your vehicles, then that's a really good life path to pick for that. The next up is the Street Kid, and that's pretty obvious what that is. You grew up in Night City, you know the ins and outs of Night City. You know shortcuts through the city that nobody else might know. You're used to the violence of the city, so if somebody pulls a gun on you, your character's not going to freeze up. He's like, this happens all the time, not a big deal. Knows how to react in tense situations like that. And then the Corpo, like in Cyberpunk 2077, the corporation you work with is Arasaka. And Arasaka is like this Japanese super company. They do military gear, they sell armor, they sell cybernetics. They have their hands in everything. They are a very powerful entity, and their power is greater than that of a lot of countries, actually. But one of the things they were going to do before Cyberpunk 2077 three life path choices, they had childhood heroes, which were a little bit more of an interesting option, in my opinion. The three characters they had picked for you to like idolize and kind of shape your character are Morgan Blackhand, Johnny Silverhand, and Saburo Arasaka. And the cool thing about these is Morgan Blackhand, from the lore of Cyberpunk 2020, the pen and paper tabletop game, was Mike Pondsmith's own personal character. So he had played that character for numerous years. The character's got a lot of experience, a lot of lore attached to it. And what Morgan Blackhand did in the world of Cyberpunk, he was a solo. So like solos are the Shadowrun equivalent, or the Cyberpunk equivalent of Shadowrun Street Samurai. Street Samurai, they have a lot of cyberware. They're finely tuned combat war machines, basically. They are awesome with an array of weapons, guns, blades, launchers. You can usually drive vehicles pretty well. when it comes to a combat type scenario, these guys are like who you want to go to, like your protection professionals, things like that. And Morgan Blackhand was like, he was like the role model street samurai or solo. Like he's the one that everybody else looked up to. He's the one that everybody wants to be like, the consummate professional, cool under fire, stoic, doesn't fail jobs, things like that. Um, and according to the lore, he might even still be alive. In Cyberpunk, the game, video game, um, he's never mentioned directly, as far as I've seen, but other characters talk about him in passing, and you can meet friends of Morgan Blackhand. So I think that's pretty cool. Johnny Silverhand's the next childhood hero that you could have chosen from in the way the old system was. And Johnny Silverhand is what you call a rocker boy. So in other games, think of like kind of like a bard or an angry bard. You know, he like enhances the abilities of the other team members. He can like coax emotion out of other characters or enemies. Like maybe one of the examples that Johnny had done that was really cool, I thought, is he always had a beef with Arasaka because he hates the corporations. He wanted to tear them down and wanted to give freedom back to the people. So his songs were always really angry, anti-corporation music and stuff like that. And he'd like get his fans worked into a frenzy. And one time, this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but it's in the lore of the game and you can read it and stuff like that. So I don't think it's that big of a spoiler. But Johnny Silverhand got his fans like worked into a frenzy. He did a gig at the base of Arasaka Tower, and basically he just got them all riled up, and they started a riot there in front of the tower. And corporate security came and tried to, fix things, and it just broke out into this huge fight. And Johnny took advantage of that and got his team inside of Arasaka Tower to go take care of business. So I was like, that's pretty badass. The Rocker Boys are really cool, and there's a lot of different things that you can do with them. But Johnny Silverhand, like as a person, and if he's like a childhood hero, there's some things about him that are not good as well. He is like your typical rock star. Like he's very arrogant and selfish. He overindulges in alcohol and drugs all the time, and definitely lives that like rock star lifestyle. And Johnny Silverhand in Cyberpunk 2077 is a big part of the game. He's voiced by Keanu Reeves, has Keanu Reeves likeness and all that. So that can definitely be fun if you're a Keanu fan. I am, so that's a definite plus for me. And the third choice for childhood hero is Saburo Arasaka, and this guy is the leader of the Arasaka company. He's views himself as like a feudal Japanese shogun is how he thinks of himself. He thinks he's God, and he's trying to elevate his company to a status that rivals that of America. He basically wants America to be his slaves by selling America Arasaka products and making them dependent, and basically getting them to bend the knee to his company, essentially. There's a whole lot of lore on Saburo, and he's basically been the villain of the setting ever since its inception. So there's a lot going on with him. He's not a good guy, but he is excellent at running a company. In 77, his health is kind of failing. He's, I think, 170 or something like that. Since he owns the most powerful company in the world, he's able to finance special cyberware and genetic material to extend his life. So he's unnaturally old. Though he's definitely cunning and completely ruthless. So if you're a corpo, yeah, I guess he would be kind of a good role model for you. But what's ironic about him is there's another character that I think should have been a choice for a childhood hero, and that's Yorinobu Arasaka, his, I think, second son. And Yorinobu hated the corporations as well, and uh, he basically started his own street gang, Bosuzoku gang, which is, a bunch of street punks. If you know about Japanese Bosuzoku biker gangs, then you kind of know what I'm talking about. They have the tricked out bikes, and they wear like the kamikaze pilot uniforms and stuff like that. And they usually cause a lot of trouble, or not, not really good people or anything. But the aesthetic's cool. However, Yorinobu's gang, the Steel Dragons, they mainly focused on just like harassing Arasaka employees, soldiers, executives, things like that, doing everything they could to try to overthrow Arasaka. And not only that, but Yorinobu traveled around the world because Arasaka is an international corporation. He was getting all these other like groups riled up trying to take down Arasaka and things like that. So back in the day, in like 2020, Yorinobu and Johnny Silverhand had a lot in common. They both really hated Arasaka. But the thing was, since his father was kind of grooming him to be in the business, he still could travel freely between the corporate world and the world of the street and be, about equally welcome in both, even though he hated corporate society. Um, I don't know 100% of the lore on that, but it's something I want to look into later. Um, I just think he's a really interesting character. But his role in the video game changes dramatically, so I don't know if he had a change of heart or what. But he's actually part of Arasaka Corp in the video game. So I just thought that was really interesting. And I'm not sure what the reason for that is. Maybe it's something that'll reveal itself in the gameplay. But yeah, that's just some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about before. I still find the genre of cyberpunk incredibly interesting, and I think I want to make more videos about this. If anybody's interested in it, that'd be great. I want to talk about, I think, the video games and the lore and some of the tabletop stuff as well, because the game it's fun, and they're rolling out patches all the time, which is making it better and better. I knew they would. But there's so much in the tabletop game that just can't possibly fit into the video game, just because the tabletop game is so big, and you use your own imagination for your hardware, so you can literally you can't fit that into a video game. It's impossible. But there's things in the tabletop that I definitely like to talk about in videos, like weapons and stuff that didn't make it into the game, vehicles, different life paths. There's just so much stuff to cover. The world of cyberpunk is huge and just so interesting, in my opinion. And I'd love to share that with everybody. So let me know what you think. Leave some comments and whatnot. Tell me what you want to see. And thanks. I appreciate you.